Hello, everyone. Adele Bernard here from Transition Clarity, and we're going to be having another authentic conversation. Why I started this podcast is to bring all these beautiful people to you and to learn more about how we can come home to ourselves through different healings, different modalities, and different people just in general. Um, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Anissa Hudak. She works with women who have been sexually traumatized, either by rape, sexual assault, or abuse, and which is the most important to her. She is also a two-time rape survivor and intimately understands the needs of the women's and what they face, and helps them navigate through their healing journey. Her life has been intertwined with PTSD, trauma, and the military. She is also a daughter of a Vietnam veteran and is also married to an active duty member with Iraq and Afghanistan veteran for over 20 years. She has volunteered with the Warrior Transition Battalion at Fort Riley, Kansas, providing yoga therapy, meditation, and other holistic treatments to soldiers, family members, and staff. After seeing their struggle and having my own personal struggles with trauma and PTSD, I was inspired to create trauma healing yoga therapy. She's also active with hypnotherapy, and it's a gift to have her on the show. She's going to take us through her journey, and hopefully her journey will help other people that are going through this trauma. And with that, let's welcome Anissa Hudak to the show. And here she is, Anissa. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
It's it's my pleasure. And if I hope everyone gets a lot out of this conversation, because as much as I thought I knew you, I don't know you. I'm looking at your website before we're starting this taping. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have a very colorful background. And I know from our conversations how much you can help people. So let's share with the audience your colorful background, a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today.
Well, that's a can of worms.
Well,
Um, I've known trauma all my life, whether I realized it or not. I just knew that growing up was kind of chaotic. Couldn't really figure out why, just it was. Um, you know, in follow-on years, I realized that my dad, being a nom vet, he had PTSD, and that was what led to the chaos. Um, Now, that's not to say I had a terrible childhood. I didn't.
mhm,
However, there were moments and times where they weren't terribly great.
mhm,
And my dad suffered. My dad suffered and still to this day suffers. He, in the last 10 years, has finally gotten with the VA. He's been on doing medications. He's been doing all kinds of different techniques and treatments. Some have worked really well for him, some not so much. He has found himself a group of other vets where he can kind of talk, and he's really he's turned a corner.
mhm.
Now he still suffers from the nightly nightmares, and he probably will until he actually dies, unfortunately. However, growing up, Vietnam in my house was like a dirty word.
Mhm. It was a
You did
dirty
not.
word. It was a dirty word outside of America.
You don't say that word in our house. I mean, and when you said it, like all hell broke loose
Mhm,
in a very quiet way. It
mhm,
was eerie.
mhm.
And it wasn't until several years ago, my dad actually told me what happened there for him. And I looked at him and I said, "Dear God, man, no wonder you've got PTSD. That would do it for anybody." My heart really goes out to him. But it took him all of that healing time to get to that point
Mhm.
where he could share that. So I grew up around that kind of chaos. And then, of course, to double down on the chaos, I married a active duty military guy
But
who,
it,
with
but
it,
but isn't it because that's what you knew?
no, not at all,
Oh,
not at all. I mean, my dad did 1 year in Nam, and that was it. He was not active duty when I was being, you know, raised, so I didn't really know it. I just knew of the chaos, but I didn't know who, what, where, how, or why. So then without me knowing it, I doubled down and I marry a military guy. 9/11 happens. And afterwards, within 5 years, he was gone for three deployments,
wow.
gone, back a year, gone, back a year, gone. And so every time he came back, a little less of him came back. And so I'm sorry, but Buddy has to say hello, my little dog.
That's fine.
Okay, you good? Thanks. So I dealt with that PTSD as well. He brought the war to our living room. And so I had to deal with that. In the meantime, during our marriage, we lost a child.
Mm.
My younger son is a twinless twin. And then even before I was married, when I was 18, I was date raped. And then about 10 years ago, I was raped again.
Wow.
So
That's
my life is
crazy.
yeah, my life is kind of like a really bad Hallmark movie, except my dog hasn't died and I haven't lost my job.
So, with knowing all that you know, uh, it's like I want to ask this question, but I don't want to ask it because it's like none of my business. But it's like knowing all that you know, how did you get in that position for the last one? Or is very familiar?
It was very familiar.
Okay. Okay.
I do not discuss my second rape.
Yeah.
I can tell you all the details about the first one. I'm happy to share.
No, that's good. And that's why I hesitated. I was just like, it's none of your business. Don't and it's like, okay, I get it. And that's fair. So anyone who's listening, she knows how to help you. Because she's had just a little bit of hiccup in her life. Um
And
and
before we were talking, and you said that over the course of the last couple weeks, you've really gotten to know me, and that I smile and I laugh, and that you would never know
mm-hmm,
all of this. And I said to you, I have a choice every day. I can lay down and die,
yeah,
and there are days I want to. There are absolutely days I want to. However, that's not really an option. I have too
yeah.
much to live for, and there's too much I want to do yet. And
Well,
so
and it's interesting you're saying that because like um all this week it feels like something has shifted energetically in the cosmos, whatever, that everyone feels they have to share their full truth with me. And I'm like, huh. And that's okay. Like that I'm here for that. I know my work is about holding that container for people to come home to themselves. I get that. But it's just weird that we're having like quick, text conversations. Can I call you quick? Sure. And it's like they roll out the carpet and I'm like, Why? Why is it all this week?
You know, it's a
And
heavy burden when it's all in one week. However, it's such an incredible honor.
yeah, like and I know that's my gift,
Mhm.
right? My gift is to help you have transparency. I show up as the light. I help you transform whatever you need to transform. Love it. Great. Awesome. But it was just like by the end of last night at 10 o'clock, when I'm shutting down my last and final call of the day, I was like, what an interesting week. Before I used to complain about going, what the, and now it's just curiosity. What, this is interesting. What's going on? Where are the planets? Like, and I'm not an astrologer by any means, but I understand where if you watch the moon, you understand, right? And also going back to the military thing was so like my grandfather and a lot of grandfathers were in the wars, right? I have just learned they had a non-disclosure agreement during World War One and World War Two that they were not allowed to discuss what happened for 25 years.
Interesting.
So they were figuring that everyone would have died before they needed to talk about it.
Hmm.
So now all these older men and women are still alive and they're saying, we're now allowed to talk. War is not right. You
Sometimes
know?
war is necessary, unfortunately. Nobody wants war.
Yeah.
Nobody wants war. War is not pretty. It's not anything anybody really wants. However, sometimes it is necessary. It's the only way. I don't like it. However, it is what it is.
But even like Ukraine and stuff now, right? It's like it doesn't need to impact the world. It's like two parties can't get along in the sandbox. And the world is feeling that they need to come in and put their stuff on it. And it's like, no, you don't. Stay in your own lane. Let them figure it out. And I could be simplifying this, and please, whoever's listening to this, don't shoot daggers at me. But I'm just saying, it's even in our own work, right? If you're working with a woman or a man who's going through trauma A, and someone keeps on trying to put in trauma B, and you're like, whoa, trauma B, we're not working with you yet. We're working with trauma A. Until trauma A is complete, we can't look at B. And this is how, like, and I could be totally naive because I've never been affected by war. I've never, like, I've grown up in nice Canada, right? So, right. But then on the other hand, and I say that, but on the other hand, I also know that Canadians don't even know their own history of the Ukraines in Canada. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, go and drive up to the mountains, see the memorials of how we incarcerated the Ukraines, how we wouldn't have roads without the Ukraines. We only have history that they built the Japanese built the railroads. We didn't do anything to the Ukraines. I go, okay. So the next time I saw the posters and whatever, I took pictures and I sent them. Oh my God, we encamped the Ukraines. I go, stop pointing fingers and tell your own history. We were horrible to the Ukrainians, yet they're all flocking here in there, not knowing what we did. Different times, though, right? And I never say there's a place for war. There always can be an agreement because that means that husband and wives will always have war. They can't find agreement. Playmates can't find agreement. There's always that middle ground that you can find agreement if everyone stays in their own lane.
I see what you're saying. I wish I could wholeheartedly agree with you.
Okay. I'm saying this from being naive about what actually happens in the military and what they do.
Yeah, when it comes to protecting innocence, when it comes to protecting democracy,
Hmm.
um, other countries have to stand up together to, ensure that innocent lives aren't lost,
Hmm.
atrocities aren't done, um, and that, democracy remains, because we know democracy is the backbone.
I
If we
know.
have democracy, then we can reach agreements, then we can, and we don't have to go to war. And so if it's protecting that, then at all costs. I don't agree with it.
I
However,
know, but
and
I'm
if
like,
somebody has a better idea,
I know,
like,
but
I'm
so
all for it.
this is where this is where I get my back up in a knot because we're here to save democracy. But they're asking a country, both of our countries, America and Canada, to go save the democracy of Ukraine, for instance, right? This is my little view. But they've lost democracy in their own countries.
Well, that
So,
goes without saying.
so let's just like kind of let this one go because I no podcast has ever been so political so fast.
Oh my goodness, this went really
Well,
weird.
I know, but it's like, but it's interesting. It's interesting because it's conversations that need to be had. It's all part of, in my opinion, and only my opinion, the awakening or the ascension or whatever you want to call it. And it is coming back to truth, not my truth, not your truth, universal truth, the unity of truth. So we can keep on saying wars are good, wars are needed, wars, whatever, and we'll keep creating it. Or we can say, nope, we're going to have love and compassion and unity, and we can create that too. And I think that's where our gifts are better served for the collective of the population, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And and it's interesting because when I first started networking, I had a lot of people who were part of the military, had people coming back from wherever that, had the, and they go, can you work with them? And I'm like, I haven't, but I would be honored to assist any way I can. Right. And so now it's like really cool that, oh, you've worked with vets. Oh, you've been through this. Okay. I'm putting that in my arsenal of, in my Rolodex. If someone says, can you work with someone with like, you know, just got back from wherever had like up the yin yang with trauma, and I'm like, I am not going to, but I'll pass you on. And this is where the podcast for me is my greatest asset because I'm here to share the light of all these amazing people and their gifts that are beyond my scope. And or I choose that they're not a fit, whatever. It doesn't matter. And if that's the only thing I do with this podcast, then my job is well done. So let's
Well, I
get in.
think that, and I think that, not everybody is an ideal client for us,
I know.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
When I had a private yoga practice, people would come in and be like, I'm trying you. Great. Have you gone to this place? Have you gone to this place? Have you gone? Make sure you hit this place. And I would tell them where to go.
Yeah.
You need to find what is the best fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not it, that's okay. As long as your needs are being met, that's more important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the money.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny. I actually said that to a potential client the other day that I said, I might be your fit and I might not be. And it's okay either way. Because the ultimate thing is, I want you to get the help you need. And I've also had those clients in the past that I worked for every dime of that dollar. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just eat less the next couple meals, not to have to work that hard. Or, like it's just, it,
Yeah.
because it's not good for the client either. If they're coming to you and they're like, oh, I signed up for 5 sessions and I could barely get through the first, you think they're going to be excited to come for the next 4? No. And I have done that. Like if they signed up and I'm like, yeah, after this session, don't be offended, but I'm refunding the rest of the money. And I've been told that they appreciate my honesty because I'm like, it's not working for either of us,
Right.
right? Because like if someone, this is how I look. If someone has made that decision to actually go and find someone to help them, whether it's through yoga, therapy, I don't care, whatever, right? And especially a male that don't do that.
Yeah.
10% of males will step up to ask for help for themselves. I'm not going to put them through pain. I'm not just going to take their money because they showed up at my doorstep. If the fit isn't there, don't take the client just because, well, they showed up for you. Because
Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
you might scare them that they'll never pick up a phone again to get help. And I'm like, I don't want to be part of that game. And I know people that have been, and I'm like, I'm not part of that game.
Now, I will say that, there is a certain amount of work that has to happen,
Hmm.
and there is discomfort
Oh, it's
there,
different.
you know. And I tell my clients when I'm working on the neuro side that, especially during the intake, you're not going to like me. You are not going to like me.
Kind
And
of
you're
like how we
paying.
met.
Yeah, right. Like, eh, uh, you're not going to like me. You really aren't. However, by the time we're done,
Yeah.
you're going to love the results,
Hmm.
and you're probably going to like me again. But in the, first part of our sessions, you're not going to like me, and you're not paying me to be your friend.
Yeah.
You are not paying me to like me. It's
Well,
my duty and my job to hold you accountable and to be truthful.
hmm,
And
well,
I'm sorry if that truth hurts.
I just want to share with people how we met. So we met through networking, and I was just like, well, she doesn't talk much, right? And I even mentioned that to you, like you're gonna have to talk on our podcast, right? And you're like, yeah, right. And then as we settle into networking, it's all good, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the true Anissa is coming out. These wingdingers and and I'm like, oh, I like this lady. Because, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's part of your trauma. It's a, you kind of keep that, can I put my barrier down? Can I trust you? I'm in a new group of people. I got to feel my way in, right? And I'm the same way. A lot of times I won't say anything. Like I like example, yesterday I was on a call and I was just like, I should say something. No, I shouldn't say. I had this ping pong match going in my head. And then finally I'm just like, I gotta speak. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, so blah. And then it turned out to be the best experience. And then I think about all those times I was too scared to speak. No, this room is too educated for me to speak.
Never.
Well, no, I stopped that. I know I'm here to shine the light because I also have had experiences with clients. One was a little boy. Before it was like I was doing an exorcism. That's the only thing I can think of, right? At the end of it, Mommy, can my new friend stay over for a sleepover? Right? He was 6. right? And I'm just like, oh, it's hilarious. And then another person who is world stage speaker or whatever, we get in a conversation. How about you try this? Okay. 10 years later, oh my God, that was you? I'm like, what was me? He redid the conversation we had 10 years prior. And I'm like, yeah, you saved our lives. And him and his wife gave me a hug.
Isn't
I
that
don't
amazing?
like, and when, with like the old saying, say hello, have a good day to the girl at the grocery store or the guy pumping gas or whatever. You don't know whose life you're saving. Kindness will always win, right? Because I could have met you on the street, not known anything about you, and could have said hello the wrong way. That could have spun you out, right?
Yeah.
We have no idea. And that's where the pandemic really opened my eyes up the most with how many people you speak to all the time through text, whatever. And then they get out in public and they start to realize I read lips, my hearing's going, right? Or, um, yeah, just even disabled people like who relied on the full facial features to convey what you were speaking about. And then they couldn't see anything, right? And that's where I think having the compassion and the kindness of going forward is so important.
I don't know if you have this, but a person's energy hits me before I see them.
Absolutely.
And so if I know that the energy is off, I'm a little leery. I have to check that out before I actually smile,
Hmm.
because I don't know if are they just having a bad day and their energy is off, or are they not very nice?
Hmm.
And
But
once I kind of figure that out, then I know where I stand as far as, smiling, saying hello, good morning. Um,
I figure 9.5 out of 10. They're just grumpy as all get out and need a smile. Because I grew up in a house where my mom said, kill them with kindness. They'll never serve you wrong. And it was funny because they used to have a wholesale food company and the girls would be like, oh my gosh, like, the delivery guy, what he's so grumpy. And they should say, kill him with kindness. What's that going to do? Right? And she'd leave and and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, we've been killing him with kindness. Now he brings us in treats. Right? So it's just people have bad days. Don't
and that's
take
absolutely
don't
fine.
take it
Yeah,
personally.
that's absolutely fine. However, there are people who are not nice,
And that's okay.
and their energy says that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to entice anything. I don't
Well,
want to welcome that, So
and you're coming from a totally different space because I know like I walk every day and there's this one guy like, I'm like, I don't know if you're just miserable all the time. Like at first I wasn't saying hello. And then I'm like, forget it. I say hello to people. I don't care if I get it back. I say hello and I smile. And then when I was going past him, I go, hello. He kind of looked at me and I kept walking, right? And then I saw him again. I go, hello. And he said, hello. And I kept on walking. And now he's like, good afternoon. And I go, hi. Like,
and sometimes it
he was
takes
more
that.
in shock.
Yeah.
Was he in shock before COVID? I don't know.
Oh, COVID has put everything on its ear. I mean, let's
And
be
and
real.
and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either. But it's like no one has a cold or the flu or anything other than COVID now. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. Anyways, I want to get into the wonderful work you do because I know we have so many rabbit holes we could just have so much fun playing in, and I don't want to. I want people to understand how you can help them how in what ways you can help them, and knowing that you're coming from the most authentic space of, I truly can say I've been there. This is you speaking, not me.
Right.
That I understand that trauma that we're going to work through. But I got you. I'm going to hold that space for you. And it's okay if they don't like you at first.
Yeah. Well, I'm an acquired taste. What can I say?
Yeah.
Um, I started off with the yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And yoga is my lifeline. My mat. The only reason I'm probably here today is because of my mat. My mat
Okay.
and I are very close. In fact, I've gone to the hospital and had surgeries, and I've taken my mat with me.
Oh,
I'm like
interesting.
Linus.
That's interesting.
It's my best friend. It's my confidant. I can tell it anything, and it doesn't tell anybody. It doesn't talk back, and it doesn't judge.
Yeah. And it'll
How
absorb your
amazing.
tears.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the perfect friend.
Yeah.
So I loved yoga. I loved moving my body in those ways. I loved the way I felt releasing the trauma from my body. I loved being able to help other people do that. It was fascinating. It was amazing to see, people come in the beginning and they're stiff. Their stress and their trauma has them stiff in their bodies because they're not even living in their bodies. They're living from the neck up. And all of a sudden, then we get into this class, and all of a sudden they become embodied. And then when they walk out differently. They are holding themselves differently. They're seeing the world differently. It's so bloody amazing to
Mm-hmm.
watch this transformation in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
However, I kept being faced with the same thing. My clients would come up to me and say, I feel great after I leave here. And I feel great for a little while. And then it creeps back in.
Mm-hmm.
Or I go to talk therapy and I rehash it again and again and
And
again
again.
and again. And nothing gets fixed. Nothing, there's no closure. Um, all I'm doing is just talking about it again and again and again. And I was like, okay, something's got to give here. Like, how do we find closure? How do these people move on? And I don't think that there's any one particular way.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have found this way,
Mm-hmm.
and that is tapping into the unconscious.
Absolutely.
And so when you're in talk therapy, you're talking from the conscious mind.
Mm-hmm. And just to let the viewers know, if they don't understand, the conscious mind's the mind, the muckety muck. The unconscious is your heart.
We can go with that if you'd like.
Okay. Or, well, how would you explain it?
So your conscious mind runs a very small portion of your life.
Mm-hmm.
However, you think it runs everything.
Mm-hmm.
You think that those thoughts are real,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily are. Um, and it's where the emotional regulation is. That's important to know. But it's where you do your logistics. It's, math problems and grocery lists and, things like that
Your day to day
bring
living.
your day-to-day living like that. However, it's it's not everything.
Mm-hmm.
Your unconscious takes care of things that you don't even think about, like blinking, breathing. You do those things, you don't even think about it. It runs that.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you to go to the bathroom. Like it keeps your body moving. It tells
Mm-hmm.
you when you're hungry. If you didn't have the unconscious, you'd be up a creek real quick because it runs everything of your life.
Well, and that's why I say it's your heart, because your heart will never lead you wrong. It has your highest best for you, right?
Yes.
It bypasses all the conditioning, the beliefs, the untruths that you've been told, where that can get stuck in your head.
In your conscious,
in
yes.
your conscious. Yeah.
Yes. However, what we know is that trauma is actually stored in the unconscious. So
Until
you can
you're
talk,
ready. Yeah.
well, you can talk of it from your conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you really want to deal with it, we have to let the unconscious mind have a space, process it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to give it a container so it can do the work it needs to do. And it's going to take away things that you've learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to process it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's finally going to put it to bed for you. And you can move on. And then you don't have to speak of it from your conscious, and you don't have to relive it from your unconscious. It's done. And that is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had it done to me myself. I have processed things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've processed things I didn't even realize were trauma. And so that's even,
It's just a
kind of
walk
unique.
in the park that day.
Yeah. Um, However, trauma is so different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what creates trauma for me may not create trauma for you.
Mm-hmm.
We could be in the same car accident and I walk away with PTSD and you don't.
Yeah.
So everybody's different. There's so many different things that go into what creates trauma.
Mm-hmm.
What was your stress level that day? What was your stress level over your lifetime? Have you had any prior experiences to this?
Well, and it's even looking at, say, a car accident, right? As you brought up a car accident. What were you thinking the second before the impact? That's why it happened. It wasn't the 10 hours ahead. You weren't planning that you're going to have this accident. It was, where were you? Were you in your body or not? And it's just, and like I've had a few accidents and I'm like, dang it. Like I'm just going, you weren't thinking. Boom. Bah. All right. Okay, Kira.
And so I did a ton of research and I found these techniques. And again, before I do them on anybody, I'm having it done to me because I want to know. I want to know how it's going to affect my clients when I do that. And so I've had it done, and you know, I love it. I love it. Now I'm like, all right, let's. What more pain? What's painful that I can go to now and take care of? Because yeah, it's really crappy when you're going through it.
Yeah.
However, life on the other side is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And so it pays to do the hard work.
Well,
We do the hard things so things don't get harder.
and it was interesting because I was listening to a podcast the other day and the guy said, "Oh, I knew by the tone of your voice as I walked by you in a different conversation that I needed to talk to you." And the interviewer goes, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." "What was in the tone of my voice?" He goes, "I knew you're doing your crap." And I thought, wow, that's an enlightened man. And it's more important, like, I mean, all these little idiosyncrasies, like, we just don't understand. Like, men and women are very different. Women will sit across the table from each other, men can't if they want to talk. They have to be at least 2 inches diagonal. And I went, why? Because their body is programmed. If you are directly in front of me, that means war. We're fighting. If you're slightly 2 inches off, our hearts aren't aligned that we can speak. And I was like, that's fascinating.
Hmm, that
After
is,
hearing all that, I was like, I was going through all my friends that like women and men, and I'm like, there's a big difference, the ones who are doing their work and the ones that aren't.
yeah.
And I welcome everyone doing their work into my life. Anyone who doesn't want to wake up, you can't be around me. Sorry.
No, and I feel that way as well. There are times when I'm just like, okay, you're not walking the walk, and
Yeah.
I can't be around that. It's
Yeah.
too toxic. I
Well,
hear,
is it because of what we do for a living that we can spot it easier, or is it like we just don't have time in our life to put up with it?
Yes.
Okay. I like that. Just plain simple yes. Yeah. Because
Yeah, absolutely. Because to me, their energy actually makes me nauseous and I can't physically be around them. And,
interesting.
I just can't do it. So I have to limit my exposure to certain people.
See, and that like the other day I was like, why isn't this person calling me back? And I'm like, it was literally like my heart goes, because you don't want them to. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, that was interesting. Right. So let's get back to the yoga because I used to love yoga.
Used to.
Used to love it. I had the person who came to the community center, like she was retired. She used to teach all the teachers. Like
Mhm.
and she just had this most beautiful energy and I just loved her. And I was doing yoga with her a lot and then I started doing a lot of changes in my life. Like I was flying in and out of LA every month and work wasn't going great. And then I'd come to her class halfway through. I'm like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And she's like, why? And I go, I'm just so beyond nauseous. I go, maybe it's today. Because I started thinking it was correlating with like flying back from LA and then my body wasn't regulated. And I kept on going. And then by the end, I'm like, I don't think I can do yoga anymore. I literally get like I can do standing poses and I can do sitting poses. I cannot do the up and down. I literally will get sick. Like, it kind of sucks because I like this.
Well,
So I
that's
do my
interesting.
standing poses, and then another day I'll do all the sitting poses. But I do not do up and downs.
Well, part of me says that's absolutely okay.
Hmm.
Yoga is whatever you make it to be.
Yeah,
I mean, frankly, we're all yoga masters because we're all breathing,
yeah,
and that's a part of yoga.
yeah.
So we're all yoga masters. That being said, there's another part of yoga that says, if you don't like doing a particular thing, you need to do more of it. Um, so first off, I would say, is there something physically going on? Do you
Well,
is there something in your ears maybe?
I
Um,
I've always had ear problems, and now I've had surgery twice on each eye. So I've had four surgeries on my eyes, and it's not recommended that I put my head down. Like I don't load dishwashers or unload dishwashers anymore. Like I just
so
so I think
that's there's
I
a
think it
physical
was
reason.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was a precursor to all of that. So yeah.
So then, what you're doing, your
Hmm.
standing poses and then your sitting poses, you're making it work for you. There's
Hmm.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I would highly encourage you to just continue to do that.
Hmm. And start loving my mat.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the hypnosis therapies?
Well, like I said, my clients kept saying, we can't find any closure. We feel physically great after we leave here. However, then we either it creeps back in or we go to talk therapy and accomplish nothing. And, you know,
Rehash it all, put it all on the surface.
yeah. So I was like, all right, so we got to figure out how do we how do we take that wonderful feeling off that you got on the mat and
Hmm.
extend that off the mat?
Hmm.
How do we get the closure?
Hmm.
Um, and things happen. The universe has a really funny sense of humor.
Hmm.
Um, a couple different things happened all at once. I wound up having major surgery and I was off my mat for over 3 months.
Wow.
And so, of course, I literally had no money coming in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a wake up.
Hmm.
Two, my son he was in high school and he was getting ready to go to college. And we were saying to him, he wanted to go to culinary school. And we said to him, you can absolutely go to culinary school. We're totally down for that. However, there might become a time where you don't want to work the line anymore, or you can't. God forbid you get into an accident. You need to have something to fall back on. So, whatever your bachelor's is going to be in, like cooking is part of it, yes. However, are you doing restaurant management? Are you doing hotel management? Like, what are you doing to fall back on? Because you have to have, and here I am, I'm not leading by example.
I know.
And that did not sit well with me. Like, how can I be telling him to do this when I'm not doing it?
Mhm.
There's a disconnect there, and I didn't feel good about it. The third thing that happened, because everything happens in threes.
That's a belief.
One of
Sorry.
my friends had this set of techniques done, and she was like a whole new person. Like, I'm like, I've known you for 10 years and I've never ever seen you like this. What happened? So I had planned to go and have the techniques done
Mhm.
by her guy.
Mhm.
And as it turns out, I met a gal on LinkedIn who said, she was telling me about what she does. And I was like, gosh, that sounds like a lot of like what I'm going to go have done next month. She goes, oh, really? Tell me about it. So I was telling her, she said, yeah. She's like, well, why? She said, why don't I teach you to fish instead of just feed you? And I said,
Yeah. The old. Yeah.
And I said, can I? I mean, I don't have a therapy background. I'm not a talk therapist. She goes, I don't care. You could be an auto mechanic and learn this. I said, really? She's like, yes. And I thought, okay, well, this kind of solves a lot of my different problems here. One, I'm leading by example because I have a backup
Mhm.
profession. Um, and she said, you will go through the process as a client as well as learning how to do it as a practitioner. And I said, oh, well, then just sign me up. Please bring on the pain. And and so I did it. And I've always been fascinated by the brain. I mean, we
Mhm.
we only know maybe 20% of what the brain can actually do. We've barely scratched the surface. It's just fascinating.
Mhm.
And I just so I'm all geeky in science like that. Um, and I've loved it. I've loved it. I love being able to help people, and when they're doing it, it's so amazing. The before and the after. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And words can't describe it. And they are so light afterwards.
Mm.
And you really help people bring out their magnificence. And there's, truth be told, very little that I do. Um, your body has this amazing way of being able to mend itself. Sometimes it just needs to learn how to get out of its own way. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what I do. I hold a container where you can get out of your own way and do what you need to do. And I'm
Well,
honored. I'm
and
honored.
I feel the same way because it's absolutely I don't do anything for my clients. I hold the container for them to feel safe to do their work. And I've even been told that for networking groups. Like they might be running it. I'm like, thank you. I need to hear that. Right. Because sometimes I show up to places and I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't know. It'll show up somehow. And then yeah, like it was even like I was at a networking earlier this week and I'm having like one on one and I introduced two people and they're like, we know each other. We do? I'm like, okay, I showed up for you two to realize that you knew each other. Right. So it's just and like I think you said it too, if like we aren't doing anything, we are the facilitator of their own guidance healing. And I think it's very important for people to realize that the healing is the important part. The right facilitator is the safe, sacred space. Because especially when you're doing hypnotherapy, like if you're not jiving with that person,
It's not going to work.
there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
like I have had clients in the past that had gone, the person doesn't come back. They fully didn't get integrated back into this time, and they have no idea. So they end up on my doorstep, and I'm like, so when was your last hypnotherapy? How'd you know I did that? Because you're over here, but your body's here. You're somewhere in La La Land, and they have no idea. And they wonder why, like, their job isn't going good or they're fighting with their spouse. It's like, because you're not home. And I don't know if I just happen to be in a lot of these situations that I'm seeing this, or there's a prelude to what I'm supposed to be I'm doing in right now in my life. I'm not sure. But like I say, I'm all about transparency.
Well, I can't speak for other hypnotherapists
Yeah.
because I don't know what they do and what techniques they use.
Yeah.
Um, I know what I can do.
Yep.
I know what I've been trained to do. I know what my scope of practice is. And part of that is bringing people back. You don't leave them out in la la
Yep.
land. That's kind of frowned upon. Bringing them back and breaking the state is incredibly important,
Yep.
um, because they need to function.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you put somebody back out in the world that's like that? That's not right for anybody.
Well, but that's where it really comes down to the therapist. Like, I don't care if it's talk therapy, hypnotherapy, massage therapy, yoga instructor, it doesn't matter. If 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 the instructor is if the person is more about their agenda than the person in front of them, get out of the profession. You're only causing harm.
Right.
You're taking money. You're not there for helping. And this is where I think I hit my frustrations a lot, is because I will never put money ahead of helping. Like if someone calls me, I don't care if they know me. If you call me at 3 in the morning and I answer, like my phone's always on silent. So if I answer my phone, I know you're God sent and I am the person for you. I'll get you through that trauma and then we can discuss going further. I won't say, well, call me at a better time, because anyone that knows me, if I am sleeping, I'm a dead sleeper. A freight train can go through my house and I won't wake up. So if I'm hearing a phone that's not ringing, you're meant to talk to me. I'm pulling you off that ledge. And so that's why I think it's so important, whoever's listening, if you're picking up the phone, to find that person to help you in whatever you're going through, check a few people out. Ask around. Why should I phone Anissa for this? If they don't give you high recommendations, keep going. If you swing back around and her name comes up and comes up and comes up, then you go, okay, well, that's 3 times or 4 times that this name has come up. I'm going to do an intro call. I'm going to phone and find out, does that person jive with me? If it's a no, what did you learn? Nothing lost. You had a great conversation, you move on.
I think people are intimidated when they go to a talk therapist because, oh, they're going to ask me questions and da 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 da. You are interviewing that person just as much as they're interviewing you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know that they're going to be a good fit for you as well as you're going to be a good fit for them. You need to come from that same place.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is for me. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not supposed to be,
Yep.
just as you are not.
Yep. And
It's okay.
I think that's why we also get along. We're very blunt to the point.
Yeah, probably.
like like we both have our walls up and then once they're down, sorry, you're asking me questions. Right? And I've even caught myself a couple times, and I'm not proud of it, of kind of judging people. And I'm like, wow, didn't I get that wrong? Right? Because I assume that I know who they are instead of actually having that conversation and knowing who they are.
Oh, you mean like me being so quiet and shy?
Well, that was funny. That was funny.
Yeah.
But now I know, now that you've been in the club more, that you just had to feel your way, check out the energy, see if we're all quackadoodles like you, and we are. You know,
Absolutely. But, again, getting back to clients, you have every right to interview.
yeah.
Every right.
That's anybody in your life.
This is true.
Doctor, dentist.
Yes.
Like doctors are getting harder here, but whatever. Um, Insurance person. Like,
Massage therapist, whoever you are going to, you have a consultation before somebody cuts your hair. Come on.
no,
Why wouldn't you do that with your therapist?
no,
They're dealing with a whole something much more important than your hair.
no. Especially a massage therapist, because
Yeah,
if they're not dealing with their crap, it goes into you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you have to do that. You have to really find out if it's a good fit, if you're going to be able to do the work you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, at any given time, you can say, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, you might be uncomfortable because of the work you're doing. That doesn't give you the
That's
option.
different.
That's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Because
know,
it's just like you got to think of like running a race. It's all exciting to go through the start, but that finish line sometimes is so far away. You're dragging your butt, and it's like,
you got
just
to
no,
pace yourself. Got to
don't
pace
quit.
yourself.
Don't quit. Like, there's
Hmm.
no quit, right? Take those words out of your vocabulary. You will finish the through the finish line, even if you're crawling, because once you get through that thing, you are going to stand tall. The light is going to shine from you, and no one can take that win away from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And you will feel on top of the world
and you don't have to climb the mountain physically.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
and
amazing.
but
Life on the
it's
side.
also reframing it, right? It's like, oh, this, like I used to say, like someone used to say, oh, I love roller coasters. I said, heck no, life is a big enough one for me. I don't need to ride them, right? And I've even said, oh, isn't this an interesting hiccup? It's not a mountain. I got a hiccup, right? Bring it down to the minute. How do you need an elephant? One bite
One
at a
bite at
time.
a time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as we round out this rabbit hole of conversation, it's been fun.
Oh, yeah.
What would be some final thoughts or something that you'd like the audience to know about you, a conversation, working with you? Yeah.
Well, giving up is not an option. That's number one. I mean, there are days where you might want to lay down and die, and I get that. However, giving up is not an option. And so I implore you to do the work so you can get to the other side. Whether you do it with me, whether you do it with Adele, whether whoever, do the work. We need healthier people in the world, especially right now.
Exactly.
So do the work. I love working with people. I do work with both males and females. However, I do specialize working with women who've been sexually traumatized. Go figure. I know that's shocking. However, I find that really fills my well. And I walk that walk obviously every day. So I get it. However, I do know trauma. And so I like working with folks who maybe they feel like, they're in business or they have a career, they're professional, and they just can't seem to quite either scale their business, grow their business, or they can't get a promotion. They can't just they just seem stuck in where they are. What's holding them back? I love working with people who are there in that space. I love working with people who obviously have trauma, any kind of trauma. And I love working with people who they feel like their life is one big dumpster fire. And they jump from dumpster to dumpster to dumpster. It's always like one big dumpster fire. I love working with people like that because it's fun to get them off of that hamster wheel of dumpster fires. Folks who have done all of the talk therapy and just don't feel like they have any closure, yeah, come see me. I want to get you that closure. Um, so yeah, that's kind of, who I like to work with. I love doing what I do. I love watching people while we're doing it. Because the light bulbs come on and they get to understand themselves so much more. The most important relationship anyone will ever have is with themselves. And if you can help further that relationship and expand that relationship for that person, what an amazing thing. And really, in a lot of respects, I'm holding the space. I've got the container. And there's so much self healing and self mastery that happens there. I just kind of gently guide you or nudge you or kick you if you need to get into the place you need to be. But that being said, I don't kick anybody really. Everything's done on Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, you can feel a kick through Zoom.
Yeah. I know. I didn't want to say that though. No, I don't take people where they don't want to go, but sometimes they need a little extra nudge.
Yeah.
To realize their magnificence.
Yeah. Well, and I second everything you said. It is about coming home. It is about showing up in the suit that we call a body that you chose to have, regardless of what traumas you've gone through. And like you said, we're both here to help whoever is ready and willing to cross the start line. We'll take you through to the finish.
You don't have to live in pain.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. You
and
shouldn't.
And you don't have to do it alone.
Correct.
Yeah.
You probably didn't get there alone either. So why
Yeah.
would you think you had to get yourself out of it alone?
Yeah.
So yeah, but you don't have to live in pain. You don't have to be in that place. Your life is not regulated to that. And we're here to do the work and help you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Anissa.
Thank you.
Again,
we should do this again. It was fun.
Again, Adele, this is Adele Bernard from Transition Clarity. This has been another authentic conversation. Oh my gosh, that was an amazing conversation. So many rabbit holes that we went down. If you didn't know, Anissa Hudak has gone through some stuff. She traumas and between her dad and her husband and a vet and like raising boys, and not that raising boys is traumatic, but like I mean it's just like a lot of that energy is the same energy that we all have come into this world to discern and to figure out and to learn from. And whether it's military stuff, whether it's contracts, hidden contracts that we don't know, whether it's the Akashic records that, are holding us back from fulfilling our truest dreams. It's time to step up, to shine, to light up the world like no one else can. If you want to work with me, all my information is in the show notes, or you can just book from the booking link, or follow me on LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know who you are. Share, like, subscribe to the podcast. It's under Transition Clarity on YouTube with authentic conversations. There's more of the videos there for you to check out. And once again, Adele Bernard, Transition Clarity. It's been an authentic conversation. Until next time.